All right, so this is our ductless diagnostic and service tool. You can see the part number on the box there. So there's two ways that we can hook this up. One of the ways is the L1, L2, and S, as you can see there. And you flip the switch on it, which will show it at LNS. And that's important to do when you're hooking it up that way to make sure that you don't burn the tool up. All right, so now we're gonna power it up. We have it hooked up. So what it's doing right now is verifying that we have communication with the indoor and outdoor unit. So now it shows communication is normal. So now what we're gonna do is press OK. And now we can see what the temperatures are and the fan speeds for the indoor unit by clicking here. So currently the unit is off. We'll go ahead and turn it on. All right, so now that we're hooked up to L1, L2, and S, and we know our communication's good, now we can see what's going on with the indoor unit. So we can see that the mode isn't cooling. The target frequency is the speed that the compressor is running at. It shows us our indoor temperature in Celsius. It shows us our indoor evaporator temperature. It shows us our indoor fan speed, and then it shows our setting temperature, which is roughly 68 degrees. So now you can see if I, for example, bumped up the fan speed. Now we go to medium, high, and now we're at full, which apparently is. All right, so now we looked at the indoor unit. Let's check the outdoor unit. So we can see that the mode's in cool. Right now the unit's in standby because there's a time delay when you switch modes. It shows us what our AC voltage is coming into the unit. It shows us our outdoor temperature. It shows us our condenser coil temperature. It shows us our compressor discharge temperature. Shows the outdoor unit fan speed, and that one will show in RPMs, and it shows our expansion valve position. So right now the unit's in standby. The expansion valve is fully open at 480 steps. All right, so now you can see we're approaching our set point, and it's going to start lowering the frequency. All right, so here we're only about roughly 1 degree off a set point. I'll bump it up one more. As you can see, it's slowing down as we're approaching set point. Our expansion valve is also closed off some. Now you can see that we're right on set point and it's slowed down considerably, the compressor speed. The expansion valve is continuing to close off too, the closer we get to set point. So now we went over set point. Now it's turned the compressor off, and what you'll see is the expansion valve is going to go back to fully open. So at the end of every cycle, the expansion valve goes to fully open so that it can equalize the refrigerant, and the compressor never starts with any pressure. Now our outdoor fan is shut off, our expansion valve has gone back to fully open. The indoor unit continues to run the fan. And when there's a call for cooling again, it'll come back on. All right, so now we have the other method of hooking up the diagnostic and service tool, which is the 5-volt test port. So every board has one of the 5-volt test port connections on it, as you can see with this gray wire. Plugs in right there. Now what you need to do is switch the tool before you turn it on from LNS to 5 volts, because that's the method that you're connecting with now. So this bar here slides up and down to select which way you want to connect to it. So with the 5-volt test port, you're able to get a lot more information out of it. You're also able to simulate being an indoor or outdoor unit. You can also turn on things such as the outdoor fan, compressor. You can energize or de-energize the 4-way valve. You can move the expansion valves. So you have full power to turn different things on. So right now we'll just go to the data inquiry, and it'll also show you faults if there are any. Currently we have no error. Now in the data inquiry, it'll show you the target frequency, and it'll show you the actual frequency that the compressor is running at. Now we're on a multi-zone unit, so it doesn't have an indoor T1 and T2 because we have 4 units connected. So it'll show you that number on there. But it will show you your outdoor T3, which is your condenser coil temperature, and T4, which is your outdoor ambient temperature. It'll show you our compressor discharge temperature. Now the reason that says -48 is I disconnected that thermistor to try to show an error code popping up on this when it's running. So we're gonna go ahead and turn that unit on. One thing that you can hear while this is happening is when we powered up the unit, all the expansion valves are going fully open, fully closed, fully open to make sure that they're in the right position. And that's the clicking noise that you can hear. All right, so now we gave the unit a call for cooling from 2 of the indoor units. You can see our outdoor unit target frequency is 47 Hertz. And you can see the run frequency start to catch up to that. And you can also hear the compressor ramping up. So now we can see what our outdoor ambient and our outdoor condenser coil temperature is. we can see the fan speed and RPMs of the outdoor fan, and we can see that the expansion valve is open to 200 steps. So now we did get the air code. I have the compressor discharge temperature sensor unplugged, so you can see how it'll flash an air code as it happens and give you a more detailed description than what you may see on the indoor unit, which is F3 that came up on the high wall. All right, so now I'm gonna go to the running parameter setting, and I want to make sure that my 4-way valve is energizing and de-energizing. So as you heard the click, when I changed that to 1, it energized that valve. Now we can de-energize it. Now let's make sure that our outdoor fans are running right. So I can set the RPM that I want them to run at. You have to get it to at least 200. It won't run below that. So as you can see, the outdoor fans are coming on at that RPM that I want them at. Now, for example, the fastest that they can run at is 1500 RPM. So I'm going to set it all the way up to 1499. So now the outdoor fans are going to ramp up gradually to 1499 rotations per minute. You also have the ability to energize the compressor, but you have to be very careful when doing that. And there's also a minimum frequency that that's able to run at, which is 20 hertz. But again, that's something you have to be extremely careful with, because you can damage the compressor if you don't have it set up right. So now I'm going to set this back to 0 because our units come back on after we fix the air code. When you're going through and running this, and running these tests and turning things on, you do want to make sure that your indoor units are set to either fan only or off, so that it doesn't try to run what the demand is otherwise. That way you can energize and de-energize individual things. The tool helps you when you have it to be able to diagnose and troubleshoot an issue with the system. If you don't have the tool, there's another way that you can see all those temperatures and frequency and expansion valve position without having to have that tool, and you can do it from the inside. So the way to do it is on the remote, you press the LED button 3 times and then the swing button 3 times. So LED, 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 then swing, swing, swing. All right, so now you can see that R1 is actually our T1 temperature, which is our return air temperature, or our space temperature. So we can see that it flashes 25. So now you use the LED and the swing button to go up and down through this menu. So now we can see T2, which is the indoor coil temperature, which is reading 24 degrees Celsius. And as you're doing this, you can write these numbers down. That way you can put it all together at the end and see what the temperatures are and convert it to Fahrenheit. So now we can see this is our T3. We have our T4. On multi-zone only, you'll have a T2B thermistor, which is on each suction line for each indoor unit that you have connected. So that'll show you what that temperature is. Now we have our compressor discharge temperature. Now we have our target frequency and our actual frequency. And you always want to see those two numbers matched up. Otherwise, something could be causing it to be limited, whether it's a coil that's starting to ice up from low refrigerant or another air that can cause a frequency limit. So this shows our indoor fan speed, but you actually have to calculate it from the service manual because we only have 2 digits that we can show, and that's trying to show RPMs. And you'll see the same for the outdoor fan speed. This is our expansion valve position. Which on this, because we only have 2 digits, you have to multiply that number by 4. So those are all the things that you can see without having to ohm out a thermistor. You can see if one is way off without actually having to pull everything apart and get at it. You can see exactly how the system is running. So remember, that's actually a T, but because of the kind of display that we have, we're not able to actually make a T. So it looks like R3. And then if you don't press any buttons to move through that menu anymore, it'll just time out and go back to the regular display of the set point.